Mr. Inhofe.
You know, I wish that that the general public could hear what you've been saying. You know, one of the problems that we have is we have a lot of politicians out there talking about how we have the best funded and the best prepared, and you're talking about the general public doesn't know the problem that we're having right now. We know, everybody around this table knows. And it's disturbing, and again, I point the finger at a lot of people are just not, a lot of people don't realize. I often say I look wistfully back at the days of the Cold War. You know, things were predictable in those days. Now we have people, crazy people, North Korea, with capabilities that I think they're greater than our intelligence tells us they are. So, yeah, we're in the greatest, most threatened position we've ever been in my view. General Williamson, you and I have talked before about this disastrous history of our ground fighting vehicles. And we remember going back, and I was actually in the House when this first, and speaking of how sometimes things are not projected properly. The last year I was in the House, on the House Armed Services Committee, we had someone testifying before our committee saying that in 10 years we'd no longer need ground troops. Now, you don't know what you're going to have in the future, but the chairman's right. He says we got to prepare right now for those kids who are 10 years old, because this is what they're the ones going to be paying for what we're not doing right. But you remember very well, General Williamson, when we went into, they canceled the program after, I think it was an $11 billion program, the Crusader program, but they'd actually spent $2 billion on it, and in 2002, they cut it. And normally I like to blame Democrats, but this wasn't Democrats. this was George, yeah. And in fact, it was so serious that J.C. Watts, a congressman from Oklahoma, actually retired as a result of that. He was so upset with that. Then along came the Future Combat System and FCS. And yes, this is going to replace it, and they started spending money on that, and we all know what happened. They stopped that program in 2009. Now the closest thing we have is one that is going along well now, called the Paladin PIM, the PIM program. Now what I'd like to extract from you, not that you could control uncontrollable things in the future, but that you would do everything in your power not to let that program go, have the same fate as the other two programs before that. As this happens, we're now dealing with things. Sure, you've modernized some of these things. Some of these are World War II vehicles that we're fighting with now. So I'd like to have you tell this committee, General Williamson, your evaluation of the PIM program. Is it on track now? And your thoughts on that program.
Senator, absolutely. So my starting point would be, so in immediate history, I would tell you there are two programs on the combat vehicle side that I would tell you that I think are outstanding programs. The first one would be Paladin PIM, and I'd like to talk about that for a second, and the other one would be JLTV. So on Paladin PIM, as you alluded to, we made some decisions in terms of reprioritization, which left us with a critical gap. And what we were facing was really, when you canceled the non-line of sight cannon, you ended up not having an ability to deliver fires. And so the investment that was made in the Paladin PIM program, I think, was significant, because we were not only going to face that gap, but we were really pushed up against obsolescence of existing systems. And so today, that program, which we went into production, low rate, we've produced 18 of those systems, both the support vehicle and the Paladin itself. We've delivered 12 of those, and we have 6 awaiting delivery. That program right now is in production qualification, and all that means is that they are being produced on the line, and all we're doing is guaranteeing the performance, the reliability, the repeatable processes. And to date, it has gone so well that we're now looking at awarding the full rate production contract so that can take effect in 17, where we will buy out the remainder, which is roughly 500 plus systems. So, sir, if you remember in the beginning of my opening statement, we talked about Some systems we buy new, some we have to modernize and modify. This is an example of where we've been successful in modernizing a system, bringing additional capability, and filling a gap for the Army.
Okay, that's a very optimistic answer. I appreciate that very much, and I think you'd go on to say that you'll continue to make sure that within your power, nothing's going to come and deliver a fate to the PIM system.
Yes, sir. In fact, what I would offer, and it goes back to Senator Manchin's comment. So what I would argue today is that the Army is modernizing. We are modernizing, and as you look at our 17 budget request, it includes modernization. What really affects us is that we have to slow down modernization. So as priorities come up, whether it's readiness or something else, we end up stretching out or delaying modernization, which adds cost in the long run. And so our goal is to never let that happen. It's to deliver to a schedule and to reduce cost and find efficiencies where possible.
Oh, good. I appreciate that. I know my time has expired, but let me just ask General Anderson if he would, for the record, respond. The reports show that some 250 vehicles are going to be needed for this European program over there, and I'd kind of like to see a breakdown as to what they are, for the record.
The breakdown.
No, I mean, you can answer in the record if you want to. I don't want to use up all their time.
Okay.